Oke, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 7. We are going to explain about the contribution of Islam to the development of diplomatic and consular law. So we are consist of two members. I'm Azhar Kusyana Takupa and my friend.
I'm Naila Eka Trisandian.
Okay, thank you, Naila. So we are going to the next. Uh, ah, There are four sections. First section is introductions, and next is discussion and conclusion, and the last is Q&A. So the introduction, the origin of diplomatic and cultural law back to the human civilizations, which dates back to time for before the official creation of international law. To understand the evolution of diplomatic and consular law within Islam, it is necessary to conduct a thorough investigation of Islamic diplomatic relations and the teachings of the Quran. We can gain an understanding of the Islamic position on diplomatic law by examining how envoys were treated throughout the history of Islam. So we are going to the discussion. There are 6 points that we want to explain to all you guys. The first is about the development of diplomacy in Islam. Second is sending the selection of delegates. And the third is the prophet treatment of the envoy from other states. And the fourth is Quranic states stance on diplomatic and consular law. And the fifth is the stance of the International Court of Justice, or ICJ, and international law on the contribution of Islam, consular and diplomatic law. And the last point is Muslim lawyers' stance on diplomatic and consular law. So for the first point and second and third will be explained by Naila. Time is yours, Naila.
Okay, thank you. This slide, I will discuss and talk about first, development of diplomacy in Islam, and second, sending and section of delegates. And first, the development of diplomacy in Islam, Quranic serve revealed that Islam enacts good ties with foreigners in international matters, understanding human feelings and need for peaceful dialogue to address ideological disagreement. Thus, diplomatic relation between diplomatic and consular law advancement, emphasizing diplomacy role and work approaches. After occurring in Arabia, the Prophet emphasized the diplomacy. He visited Mecca and discussed about regarding the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, demonstrate his commitment to conserve diplomacy. And also Prophet Muhammad also the protect, voice, and establish Muslim diplomatic, emphasizing diplomacy and as the primary means communicating with other country and war as a last resort. The Prophet Muhammad also proactive approach to diplomacy set present for future Muslim knowledge, influencing diplomatic standard and relationship through Islamic civilization. And next, I will then explain about sending and section of delegates. Prophet Muhammad words 3,000 letters to tribe chief, state official, and religious authorities to spread Islam and promote peace despite problem and deaths of diplomats. He's continuing his diplomatic efforts, even greeting emphasize advice. Next. Okay, in this slide, I will gonna talk about the prophet treatment of the voice from other states. After facing Quraysh, Prophet Muhammad encountered tribes and kingdoms. He welcomed them and treated fairly. From the 6th year after Hijrah, more delegates visited Medina and had different camps. The Prophet advised religious mission, tribes, and government on finalized conflict resolution in over 17 interactions. The Prophet Muhammad also never failed the diplomatic forum and safeguard a voice from abuse and association Islamic complaint for its delegation members. And next, Quranic stance on diplomatic and consular law will be explained by David.
Okay, thank you, Naila. So this is my time to explain about the Quranic stance on diplomatic and consular law. An analysis of the Prophet's engagement with foreign envoys underscores Islam's position on diplomatic and consular law. There is no historical evidence of the Prophet ever refusing envoys' rights during their meetings, which demonstrates a profound respect that is deeply embedded in Islamic teachings. The Quranic passage underscores the significance of treating guests with utmost reverence, reflecting the Prophet's attitude towards envoys. The Quran provides guidance on how to show hospitality to diplomatic representatives, emphasizing the need to welcome and treat them with respect, in line with the teachings of the Scripture. Furthermore, the teachings of Quran support the safeguarding and provision of immunity to individuals seeking shelter. The principle can be understood as advocating the creation of consulates and embassies in Islamic nations. The acknowledgement of diplomatic law aligns with both the Prophet's tradition and Quranic teachings, emphasizing Islam's dedication to diplomatic rules and conventions. And the fifth is the stance of International Court of Justice, or ICJ, and international law on the contribution of Islam to consular and diplomatic law. The ICJ has emphasized the substantial impact of Islam on consular and diplomatic law, namely in the development of patterns and protocols in diplomatic law. The ICJ highlight in its analysis of the Iran hostage crisis on 1979 until 1980 that individuals holding diplomatic mandates should not be subjected to mistreatment, a concept firmly grounded in Islamic tradition. The acknowledgement from the ICJ underscores that significant impact of Islam is forming present-day international law, refuting claims that don't play in its significance in this field. Sarah Faldin Tarazi, a Syrian judge who practiced Islam, expressed contentment with the recognition given by the ICJ. He referred to the past conversation that explored the influence of Islam on international law, specifically mentioning the concept of diplomatic immunity. Furthermore, the ICJ constitution requires participation from different civilizations, specifically focusing on Islamic civilization. They reinforce global institution recognition of Islam's role in international and diplomatic law. And the last point is Muslim lawyers' stance on diplomatic and consular law. Islam prioritizes peace and security as essential aspect of building partnership and promotes mutual respect across all levels of social life. Consistent with this approach, Muslim lawyers frequently derive diplomatic law process from the precepts of the Holy Quran. Saibani in Al-Sa'irul Kabir emphasized the importance of ensuring the safety of invoice in order to effectively carry out their duties. He suggests that written agreements should ideally guarantee security. Shaybani's thought later reflected in diplomatic treaties issued several countries thereafter. Highlight the diplomatic impunity serve not just the interests of people but enables them to carry out their responsibilities effectively. Abu Yusuf, in his work Al-Ikhraj, states that once someone is acknowledged as an ambassador, they and their belongings are granted immunity for mistreatment. This safeguard should be respected even in times of war. Sarahis provides more evidence to support this idea, asserting that throughout history, envoys have consistently been granted protection, both in Islamic era and during the pre-Islamic Jahiliyah period. This is because the dispatching of envoys played a crucial role in the management of both warfare and diplomacy. The legal position of Muslim scholars is closely in accordance with the Prophet customs and the Quran's teachings. So next is going to talk about the conclusions will be explained by Naila.
Okay, thank you, David. The next conclusion is diplomatic and consular relations pass and prevent, protects and life, individuals' assets and privacy to help them to their jobs. The Prophet Muhammad showed respect for its voice, jobs, and Islam has a value diplomacy in international matters since the Prophet owned leadership and Islam commit to the consular and the diplomatic law showed its respect for Islam impact on diplomatic law. The implies that Islamic nation should track the Vienna Convention demonstrates also this country create an organization of Islamic cooperation to promote Islamic contribution to diplomatic and consular law. And this program combats negative attitudes and promote understanding and cooperation in this essential subject. And that's all for conclusion.
Okay, thank you, Nala, for your conclusion. So the next section is about Q&A section. So after talking about the development of diplomacy in Islam, sending and selection of delegates, the Prophet's treatment of the envoys from the other states, and Quranic stance on diplomatic and consular law, the stance of International Court of Justice and international law on the contribution of Islam to consular and diplomatic law, and the last is talking about Muslim lawyers' stance on diplomatic and consular law. We have maybe some time to our friends to asking about those questions, those discussions. After that, we can close our meeting today. Okay, maybe it's all from us. If is there any mistake, we are going to need some apologies from you guys. You can close with salam. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.